So I'm here at Structure with John Engates, who's the CTO at Rackspace. And Rackspace has been a long-time contributor to the Northbridge Future Cloud Survey. And so it's great to have you here, John.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. And as you'll have seen, the survey results actually really tee up quite an interesting proposition for you. The clear message there is that the move to hybrid is very real. And more importantly, that people are looking for an open solution here. So can you give us a little bit of a sense about what you're seeing in the marketplace and whether that resonates with the reality?
I think it totally resonates with reality. I mean, my presentation that I spent time on here at Structure is all about hybrid cloud powered by OpenStack. So you've got an open foundation to create these hybrid cloud stories that customers are craving. The reason that they need hybrid cloud is because really the public cloud doesn't solve all of their needs all by itself. I think as an industry, we told ourselves and we told the world for a number of years that it was a race to the public cloud. The truth is that there is something better that we call hybrid cloud, and it allows the customer to fit the right workload on the right infrastructure and make the application much more efficient and much more reliable and much more sort of cost-effective overall than just a pure public cloud story. It doesn't solve everything.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the one thing that we discussed last night actually at the dinner with the findings is obviously that makes perfect sense. It feels like it's the best of both worlds. But there was also a finding in the survey which is quite interesting, which is that there's a potential for complexity to go up. So when we talk about hybrid cloud, we all know that that's a great dream and it's not that easy to make happen. Now, of course, a lot of the goal of OpenStack is to make it easier. So can you talk about what reality is today? How much easier is it? What level of complexity do we have and what do we still have to do to really make the advancement?
Well, today and up until now, really one of the problems has been, when people thought about hybrid, it was something on-premise and maybe the AWS public cloud. That was what you were working toward. And AWS and other private cloud software, they don't share the same code base. They aren't the same software. They may have similar APIs to some extent, but they're not fundamentally the same stuff. And so, like you said, OpenStack is really giving us at least a common platform, a common API, a common set of services. And that makes it a whole lot easier. Our customer, HubSpot, was telling a story around how they're actually allowing their developers to provision to public cloud, private cloud, and even bare metal servers using the same API, using the same tools. Yep. They've built sort of a mini...
Squeezing the last inch out of it.
Exactly. Well, the bare metal really matters. Bare metal works great for
big data projects.
Big data lives on hybrid cloud. I mean, that is the message that people have to sort of adopt, because it is the truth. It makes so much sense to match that workload. And I think what you asked about was, is it complicated? Well, we're working on that. The OpenStack community is working on the tools, the management interface, the orchestration capabilities, all of the things that you're going to need to make that story very simple. And then there's a number of other companies within the broader OpenStack ecosystem that are maybe the traditional enterprise software management vendors, the enterprise infrastructure management vendors, the guys that built the tools and the dashboards that IT ops uses. Well, that may help them with the management story of a hybrid architecture. And all of those are emerging because the OpenStack ecosystem is so hard to ignore at this point. The standard that's sort of building around this is something that people can't avoid or ignore. They have to get involved in it for fear of missing the boat, really. So at this point, it's kind of like a flywheel effect where it's building on itself, and these tools will come out of that stream of innovation that OpenStack's working hard on.
Well, clearly, as the survey bears out, people want this, but they also want interoperability and even data portability. So there's more to just OpenStack, open than open source.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about how you think about interoperability and the ability to, fit within a broader set of the players in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so we don't think that we're going to have all of somebody's IT all at Rackspace in total. We think that it is going to be a story of interoperability, potentially between SaaS platforms and platform as a service and infrastructure as a service, and maybe multiple providers in each category. And I think interop between these different platforms, comes in a variety of forms. Having consistent APIs is one aspect of it. Having the ability to mix and match. In OpenStack, we're very open to different hypervisors, different layers of the stack. Networking is another one. We've done a great deal of work to make it a pluggable, modular architecture where you can plug in different network providers, different server architectures. It's a very open platform in that regard. And the very fact that it is open source allows people to change it if they need to, or plug into to the platform to integrate with the directory services, or those things are all possible with OpenStack, and they're not forced on you. They're not prescribed ahead of time. They're open and available to work across multiple vendors. The other aspect of OpenStack is there are some features that do allow for portability amongst clouds. I mean, there is a AWS compatibility layer.
Yep.
We don't expose it in our public cloud, but in private clouds, it's made available for customers that want to move workloads over. Oftentimes it's used as a migration tool to get people used to the new, but they often find that the OpenStack APIs are richer in that context because they can do things that AWS has never exposed.
Yeah, it's a two-sided sword. I always hear people say, well, richer but compatible, and how do you keep up with AWS's changes, etc.
Well, the other problem is if we just try to map everything to AWS, we're limited by what they've done. We're limited by what they've invented. And so, we want to give the people, the customers, the tools to move to the platform, and then we want to give them all the power of the platform. And I think we've struck a good balance there.
Yeah. So let's just talk a little bit about that community, because it's obviously a core piece of this. I mean, one of the original challenges here was, of course, the governance issue with so many competing interests. And hats off to you for putting it in place in the first place. But in some ways, it would have been easier if you'd been able to just drive this thing.
Totally easier. When you do it all by yourself, you don't have to wait for anybody. You don't have to ask any permission. You just do it. We have put in place a great foundation that runs the OpenStack project itself. It's got great support from the ecosystem, the vendors. We have a great group of vendors. The folks that are involved at the top tier are people like Rackspace and Red Hat and IBM and HP and others that are really contributing a lot. And I think that there is a spirit of cooperation that I've rarely seen in our industry, because they have a common mission, they have a common goal, they have a target in mind of what they want to do with the platform and where it wants to go, and most of it is aligned. I mean, most of it is very well aligned, and so we're not butting heads very often. But it is important to have a strong foundation. The team that is sort of running the foundation are a great group of people. They know what they're doing. They've built a strong governance model, and they have a lot of participation across the board, and I think they're doing a great job.
Well, I have to say I know a bunch of them, and I have to say the original sort of challenges feel like a year later they've been mitigated in lots of regards and moved beyond.
It's impressive.
But one of the things that we discussed, funny enough, at our open source event recently was, of course, where would the boundary lie between your infrastructure as a service and moving into the platform as a service space? Would you run things like database as a service? Where are you on that?
We are.
What's your view about
it is a hard line to define or draw. I mean, the fact that most people that run an infrastructure cloud start to layer in things on top that make it look like a platform. Jim O'Neill from HubSpot says he sort of built his own Heroku on top of OpenStack. We are introducing all kinds of services. We acquired a company called Object Rocket, which is MongoDB as a service. It runs alongside our public cloud and is made available to private cloud customers in our data center as well. Essentially, it's big data as a service. We're doing the same thing. We're working with Hadoop as a service that we're going to be launching fairly soon, I would say. There's a lot of things in that category where you think about the complementary services and products to a infrastructure cloud, and inevitably you sort of start to bleed into what people would characterize as a platform. Well, but then does it matter?
No. I mean, in fact, just to be clear, it's one of the things that comes out of the survey, and I've predicted it for years, which is that there'll be a natural evolution for the infrastructure players into the platform space, because you've got to differentiate that way. It's what your customers want. It's a natural, integration point. So
absolutely
why would you have it any other way?
Yeah.
Well, now let's look forward here. So what could we expect in the next year from OpenStack? And if we're sitting here in a year's time having this discussion, what do you want to be able to say?
Well, look, what I want to say is lots more service providers running OpenStack, which is happening as we speak. I mean, Rackspace was the first and the biggest, but there's a lot more in the pipeline. IBM just acquired SoftLayer. SoftLayer is going to have a hard time not running OpenStack in that environment. There's a number of other service providers that I know are in the works. That's important because people want to know that OpenStack has a big base and HP is doing a great job with their cloud. So we've got a good base to start from, but I want to see a lot more than that. And really, even more important is a lot of enterprises running OpenStack private clouds, enabling them to do hybrid. We're starting to hear this. The last OpenStack Summit, we saw a number of user stories around what they're doing with OpenStack. Some of them are leading edge web companies, some of them are more classic enterprises, but I want to see a lot more of those stories come out, and I think that domino effect is starting to happen. People are getting excited about what they're doing with OpenStack, they're having success with it, and they're going to want to share that story with the community because that's their community. Yep. They're also going to want to share it on the public stage because it's something they're proud of and they're excited about.
Yep.
And so I think that will start to happen as people feel like they have license to do that. They're not the first guy to do it. That's always hard, to be the first guy to go out and tell the story and then feel like a pioneer that fell on his face. But man, nobody's falling on their face, and we don't see failures with OpenStack. People are having success with OpenStack, and they're going to want to share a lot more of their stories. So I hope to come back, to Structure or the OpenStack Summit and tell you about all the big enterprise customers that are using it. I know that's coming soon. We had a customer here, Fidelity, that was on stage telling about what they were doing with OpenStack. Great company, great IT innovator. They know what they're doing. There's a lot more like them out there, and we're going to invite them to tell their stories as well.
And then, to wrap this all up, what about Rackspace? How does this, move the ball forward for Rackspace? This is obviously a critical part of your agenda.
Well, we're in the middle of all this. I mean, we're in the middle of the OpenStack ecosystem. We're running the biggest public cloud on the OpenStack platform, or I should say, the biggest OpenStack-powered cloud. I don't want to
put it that way.
Put it the other way around.
Yeah.
We are also enabling those enterprises to run private clouds. We're the expertise and the support and
you're having to prove it.
We need to go deliver it. We need to prove it in our public cloud, and we need to take that expertise and wrap it up and deliver it to a customer in their data center. We need to make their private cloud feel as easy to use as our public cloud. We need to make it something that feels seamless in a hybrid architecture where their developers move back and forth seamlessly between those. So we have to do some work to make that integration story better. We need to do the work to get those OpenStack clouds built and stood up and running well. And then we go tell a lot of stories. And I think that's our probably the next year worth of work on our plate.
Great. Well, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is for a second and say, so where would you want investors like myself actually investing in the OpenStack ecosystem? Where do you see opportunity there that you think is important to fill?
Well, I think, let's see, where would I want people spending time? I think networking is a challenge that even though we've got software-defined networking, we're just at the very early stages. Networking is one of the biggest, hardest things to solve. It's the most complex, and it has to work for hybrid cloud to be a reality. We need to make that as easy as possible. Storage is getting worked out. Storage is basically just a matter of plugging in the different flavors of storage, but there's a lot of opportunity for improvement there. Another area that we're spending a lot of time is within the Open Compute. Open Compute is the open source server side of the equation versus the software side. So there's a lot of innovation to be done in the data center and how we build a data center, how we architect the servers and the infrastructure. And then I think the last place is just the tools around it, the tools that make it easy for every different user of the cloud, whether it be an enterprise or a startup or somebody in between. They need it to be simple to use. They need it to be on their terms, not my terms or yours. And so that means there's a lot of categories of tools that are going to need to be built. And
because when you say tools to a VC, we all run, but I know what you mean. I think you're
it's management, it's abstraction layers, it's helping enterprises get to the DevOps model. How do they take advantage of what startups are doing so well? Continuous integration and continuous delivery. That's one of the things we're bringing from our public cloud and soon to be delivering in a private cloud context. That same sort of cycle of not waiting for a big upgrade. Nobody wants a massive upgrade anymore.
It's got to be continuous innovation.
It's got to be continuous. And so I think whatever enables those kinds of activities in an enterprise is where there's a lot of opportunity, and therefore investment ought to be spent.
Great. Well, here's to finding some investments that support it. So
I hope so.
Big believers. Great. Tremendous. Great to spend some time with you, and here's to having a great year ahead.
Sure.